Okay, it's January 23rd, 2025. This is the IPS evening deprogram, and in a few days we're going to have a regularly scheduled time slot, likely 7:30 p.m. Mountain Time, like tonight. This is One-Eyed Jack and the Murder Hornets, dawn of a new day. Whatever happened to the Murder Hornets? They never arrived en masse. I sent out live stream notifications today. I didn't yesterday because I wasn't confident yet in the OBS setup, but I think we're good now. So there's going to be a number of people rolling in. In fact, let me go ahead and turn on the audio streams. So if you listen at TuneIn, Radio King, paranormal.radio, and there's radio.net, or any of these other sites, you can join us in chat by going to ips.monster. There's a lot to talk about today. So I have my IPR Points of Interest. So let's start with that, and then we'll go through things. John McAfee has returned to X. Who cares? Did he fake his death? His girlfriend thinks so. And there's this drama with Barack Obama and Jennifer Aniston, dating rumors. And some suggest that there's some friction between Obama and Michelle over Jennifer Aniston. Generally, I wouldn't care about such a thing. You know, Angela, Jolene, and Jennifer Aniston, Brad Pitt, like these celebrities, who cares, right? However, the Obamas produced Leave the World Behind. And Leave the World Behind contains a ton of predictive programming and coded messaging, symbolism. It's been analyzed like crazy. Almost like mainstream predictive programming, that one. But one of the subplots of Leave the World Behind was the TV series Friends. And right before the release, you had the very high-profile death of Matthew Perry, who drowned. And one of the themes in the Leave the World Behind was this flood. And the production company's even called Higher Ground, which seems to allude to such a thing. But Jennifer Aniston being a star of Friends, which is a huge part of the subplot of that particular show, movie, is kind of interesting in this context. So having Obama and Aniston mentioned together seems a little scripty. And speaking of scripty, this latest school shooting, Solomon Henderson, I've already suggested that it's a psyop. And previously, my first impression was it's probably real because the body count is so low. But like with many of these things, I wait and see if there's any immediately discernible political agenda attached to it. And sure enough, it's tied in to Netflix, the Madness show. It's tied into alt-right figures who are all referenced in that show. In fact, I was looking at this thing, and judging by his t-shirt, I said, this is going to bring Ye into the conversation. Which sounds like, okay, what do you mean? Well, there's this whole drama with Ye from a couple years ago where he did the White Lives Matter with Candace Owens. So Candace Owens, Ye, do White Lives Matter, destroy his career. He gets kicked off of Twitter/X. And at the time, we were talking about the significance of his song Black Skinhead. Now, this is all stuff we've already gone over before, but it adds to this because after this, he had this other controversy related to a T-shirt he wore. It wasn't a huge controversy, but the timing of it. He had just gone on his apology tour, kind of apologizing for all of his so-called anti-Semitic tweets and stuff. And then he wears a Burzum shirt, which is a black metal band associated with apparently Nazis and anti-Semitic murder or something like that. So the fact he would wear that is something of a provocation and a contradiction to his apology. Well, the shooter, Solomon Henderson, was wearing a Burzum shirt. So when I saw that, I said, this is going to drag Ye into the conversation. It turns out on his manifesto, he cites as his inspiration Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, and Kanye West. And when I was looking at this, I said the reference to Kanye West and Burzum is the Black Skinhead. It's all Helter Skelter. Turner Diaries, Death of the West. And interestingly, he even put the phrase Death to the West in his manifesto. So we'll go over that too. So that's Solomon Henderson, Metascripted Madness. So let's start here. Solomon Henderson Metascripted Madness. And I didn't send out live stream notifications yesterday because, like, again, I wasn't quite confident in OBS. We talked about robots that bleed, trauma mannequins. So if you want to catch up on that, just go to ips.monster, and the archives are posted there. If you're still on Patreon, it's all free now, but I'm still sending live notices, and I'll send you links to the latest archives. I'm just moving away from a certain business model, and I'm trying to get this tabloid into the real world. It has to enter the meatverse. It's just digital right now, and I think I can do it, but I need to have a separate income stream, and I've come up with it. I have a side business that I'm working on, as well as my art, and I think within a month, I'm going to have it kicked off. So I'll have more information about that as things progress. And pretty much all of my blog posts are going to show up in print, as well as interviews that I transcribe. There's quite a lot of content I have. It's kind of a travesty it's taken me this long, but it's going to be worth it. And much of the content is timeless anyway. If you want to do some retro auto-hoaxing, this will be your source material. You'll go back to a issue of the tabloid from 6 months ago to know, okay, what was happening at that time. And I'll be including mind maps, not to mention it's high-quality laser print. There's going to be a ton of artwork. So anyway, Solomon Henderson Metascripted Madness, why I think it's a psyop. So Netflix had a character called Brother 14 in their show called The Madness. Now again, Netflix is government propaganda. It's not the simulation putting synchronistic messages for truthers. No, it's government propaganda. The fact that the Obamas are behind Leave the World Behind should seal that for you. It should just, it's case closed. It's all propaganda. It's simply the case that entertainment is used to help drive home the fake news, and the fake news becomes our fake, completely fabricated history, which then becomes carved in stone, the official story that you can't contradict. The fact the Obamas are in the predictive programming business is rather insightful here. And so I'm talking about Netflix in this context because the number one show before Luigi shot the CEO was The Madness, which has a theme of the working class versus the elite, a billionaire CEO who steals an election and finances Nazis online. And he gets assassinated, and it's like a good thing. But The Madness was the number one show, so I watched it with the presumption that it would contain a ton of messaging for what's going to happen over the next 6 months or so. Well, their main character, Brother 14, is the leader of a group called The Forge. He corresponds to Nick Fuentes, leader of America First. But he looks like Stu Peters, and these characters are all in the same group. So it's like he's a mashup of Stu Peters and Nick Fuentes. But Fuentes was cited as the inspiration for Solomon Henderson's shooting in his manifesto. And as I often say, life doesn't follow Netflix. Fake events do. The Madness, the title, refers to violence caused by mind viruses, fueled by the billionaire who stole the election. It's all a reference to Elon Musk and what I've called here Disease X. When Twitter became X, I said Elon Musk is going to be the vector for the memes that are used to justify the suppression of free speech. Memes that cause people to turn violent, the rage virus, like in 28 Days Later. So here you have an example of this. He caught the rage virus online. 17-year-old Solomon Henderson opened fire at Antioch High School, live streaming it on Kick. So there's another aspect. Live streamed mass shootings have been used as a pretext for censorship since, Brenton Tarrant, and then you had the shooter at Buffalo, the supermarket shooter, the Tops. So live stream shootings have been used to censor stuff. So this is another example of going after Kick. The shooting left 2 dead and 2 injured, shaking the Nashville community. And whenever I look at one of these events, I assess it by what's the very first thing that they show you? What images do they want you to associate with your emotional response to the tragedy? For example, the first pictures of George Floyd, he's sitting there next to a Corona poster. So you have Corona, Floyd, kind of interesting. In this case, you have the shooter wearing a mask and a Burzum shirt. So again, if you're not familiar with Burzum, it's a black metal band that has they have a history of Let me bring this up. I don't know very much about it, but I just know that there's so here's, in fact, there's a picture of a shirt of Ye wearing a Burzum shirt. That's funny. But Burzum. Okay, so the main band member, the singer of this, and I don't think they ever performed live. He had some kind of neo-Nazi organization. So National Socialist Black Metal. So, a lot of black metal music, which is a style of heavy metal, revolves around paganism, rejection of Christianity, Satanism, etc. But this one was a little more infused with Nazi stuff. I wouldn't say black metal is Nazi at all, really, but some of them are, I suppose. But this one is definitively so. So this is interesting in itself. He's wearing a Burzum shirt. So now I find this. This was from last year. Ye hanging out with JPEG Mafia rapper, and he's wearing this shirt with Burzum on it. And it says here, West was wearing a Burzum shirt because one way to make your lackluster apology to the Jewish community feel even more hollow is having the face of an anti-Semitic murderer on your chest. Now, none of these photos are accidental. Everything's a prop. Now, interestingly, he mentions Ye in his manifesto, and I didn't know this when I said that Ye was going to be a part of the story. So let me scroll down to that. Candace Owens has influenced me above all. Each time she spoke, I was stunned by her insights and her own views. She helped push me further into the belief that violence over the Jewish question were the... anyway, it goes on about this stuff. We were taught extremism by video games, literature, cinema. Now, this whole manifesto sounds like ChatGPT, but he's basically saying that any kind of entertainment or media needs to be censored. We were taught violence and extremism by video games, music, literature, and cinema. Yes, following music taught me to kill. Kanye West and playing games like Manhunt, Cry Out in Fear have prepared me for murder. Now, this is all intriguing because I'm looking at this Ye connection, and coincidentally, I'm watching Amazon. I'm watching a show on Amazon, and there's a commercial for Bill Maher's new comedy show, which sounds very unfunny. But I'm listening to it, I'm like, wait a minute, that soundtrack is familiar. So on the soundtrack for the 30-minute commercial for Bill Maher's new show is Ye's song, Black Skinhead. So Black Skinhead figures into this whole story, as you'll see. But I also noted here, and I mainly posted this because JL may be listening, the Elvis director used to play Black Skinhead to hype up the actors before all the scenes. It says Kanye West had been inspired by Elvis Presley and wanted to match his greatness. Nowadays, his music inspires actors and actresses on the set of the movie based on Elvis. Just kind of a weird side note. Here's where he says in his manifesto, Death to the West. So when I was talking about the significance of Ye, White Lives Matter, Candace Owens, and the destruction of his career, I was saying we were witnessing the fall of Kanye West, the death of the West, where it's all a theme, but the name tied into it. And it tied into the symbolism of his Dawn Day event, where he burns the house and he comes out covered in, he's burning, like, I guess, a naked burn gel, but he's doing the walking phoenix thing. Then he has the Dawn Day 2 event on 2/2/2022, and Elon Musk is there. He's hanging out with Elon Musk and Marilyn Manson, which got me talking about Charles Manson and Helter Skelter, Turner Diaries, the whole race war scenario, and this mixing of black and white. Candace Owens and Ye saying white lives matter. So you have two blacks advocating for whites. Then you have a black skinhead showing up on InfoWars with Nick Fuentes, the Black Hood. None of this is coincidental. I'm just unpacking it all. Frank Murr had noted that it was reported to have happened at 11:09 a.m. This was reiterated several times. So kind of interesting here. I have a mind map that I'm working on that has a lot to do with the number 119 and 911, as these are significant to the wider psyops. For example, when we look at the scripts, the symbols, the codes, there's consistency here, as we'll get to. Here's a picture of Elon Musk doing the Sig Heil. Now, I want to know what the Nazis think about this, because the ADL says it's not a Nazi salute, that he was just being exuberant and autistic or something, which doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm just noting the significance of this. And then the Nashville shooter was apparently a black white supremacist. And here he is giving the Nazi salute. Now, he was inspired by Candace Owens, which is interesting because she espouses views that, if spoken by a white male, would be called racist and sexist. But it's all about, I think it's about inversion. I really think there's something going on here. Like, this is inverted. Now, again, interestingly, he mentions Ye in his manifesto specifically. So you have Ye, black skinhead, White Lives Matter, Candace Owens, who was the other inspiration for the shooting. Now, I have a mind map on this topic, which we'll be going over here soon. Okay, next, Obama, Jennifer Aniston, and Leave the World Behind. Rumors and PSYOP Theater. Here are the headlines. Is the Obama family having a hard time amid the raging relationship speculations? Jennifer Aniston admitted an affair with Barack Obama. Here's why Obama and Aniston dating rumors are trending. Is Jennifer Aniston responsible for Barack and Michelle's alleged frosty relationship? So President Obama's Higher Ground Productions releases Leave the World Behind, a horror apocalypse end of the world movie that involves the television show Friends in its subplots. Rose, who's compared to Donnie Darko, is obsessed with the show and wants to see how it ends. Friends star Jennifer Aniston, of course, is a key player in this story, and so is Matthew Perry, who died, I think it was the 28th of October. So died a little bit, a month before this thing came out. And he drowned, which again ties into the drowning theme, the flood theme in Leave the World Behind. So here's what I'm suggesting here is that this is probably not a real affair, but it's some kind of a psyop, and I think it has to tie in. I think it ties into Leave the World Behind in some way. I'm interested in your thoughts, but I don't look at the stuff as real news. I think this is some kind of tabloid trash that's leading to something. Okay, so let's go to. I don't care so much about John McAfee. It's just some old, Q hopium. We may get into that. Did Garrett Ziggler kill a cat? If you want to, this story gets so weird. I've been following this. It turns out the person I'm suing and Marco Polo 501c3, they're being sued for $60 million for the same thing I'm suing them for by somebody else, an attorney named Kevin Morris who works for the Bidens. And it looks like Garrett Ziggler is accusing them of trying to intimidate him by putting a dead cat on his porch. And so Garrett Ziggler posts this article, Shadow Tactics, the Unseen War Against Truth. Now, just a little bit of background. Garrett Ziegler's uncle worked for Nixon. He's in the White House. He works for Trump, or he did. And he works with the person that I have been involved in litigation with. So they know each other. This person happens to be a huge QAnon influencer, and he's in the White House press corps. Well, they're being sued for hacking Hunter Biden's laptop. So I'm finding that I have a common enemy with Hunter Biden. And Biden's attorney is suing the guy I'm suing separately because of some defamatory stuff that he had published. But anyway, Garrett is alleging that they killed a cat and put it on his doorstep along with a note. He says the unsettling memory of finding a dead cat with the letter at his parents' home lingers in Ziegler's mind. A dead cat, a morbid warning with a note and a thinly veiled threat. The message was telling Garrett and those associated with Marco Polo that they were in the crosshairs of a powerful adversary, a twisted act of intimidation. So I'm looking at this and I don't believe it. So I'm asking, did Garrett Ziegler kill a cat? Did he report this to the Animal Humane Society? Was there a police report? If I don't see a police report, if I don't see any indication that they contacted any PETA or any of these groups who might look into this, then I'm going to have to allege that this is either fake or he killed the cat. Or he found a dead cat and put it in a box and then used it as a prop. But I'm just putting it out there. Garrett Ziegler likely killed a cat. Let me go through my comments. I haven't heard anything on the JFK files. Echo Charlie's asking about that. I'm interested in it. MLK, JFK. Somebody told me Emmett Till was a crisis actor who grew up and became MLK. Some say MLK was a crisis actor who then transformed into Don King. Interesting. Little trail there if you can follow it. Frank Murr, Let's Go, Diana South, Matt X, Flozik, John Francis, Dwayne Garrett, Gondola Wish says, can you make a coffee table book about auto-hoaxing? Sure. You know, I'm actually thinking that the tabloid will be the coffee table book. The tabloid, the IPS Insider, INCITER, the Insider will be the coffee table book. I had this aunt who had stacks of tabloids, and I just loved because they're on the coffee table. They were hilarious. And I think that this could be that. And it'll be up to date. It'll be reciprocal. Like in other words, it's not just a paper, but it has an online component. Every single article, every podcast, every interview will have a QR code that directly connects you to content to download, including the art. So I'm trying to make this thing into a kind of a groundbreaking sort of tabloid because it will be both digital and physical at the same time. And everything you have in print will be a doorway, a direct path into the think tank in our body of research. Mark Foley says, funny how this shooting happens after the big Trump EO regarding government censorship, complete mockery. Well, okay, so the whole case is being made here that Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes, who should be censored, but they're not because of Elon Musk, caused this individual to have self-hate, to internalize white supremacy like Candace Owens, and then do some kind of a murder. So they've created this story, and it's definitely, in his manifesto, he said, I was radicalized by video games and comic books and the TV. Like, nobody would write that. No mass shooter is that insightful. That's a ChatGPT project. Some FBI agent made it. It's terrible. Joined by Lean Dion. Frank Murr says, sick mind games. Yep, it is. It's a strange game. Only winning move is not to play. Virgin said strange. Oh, no, it's a stretch thing. It's autistic stimming or something. What if the hand gesture had deep symbolic meaning, like with the Saturn occult connection you've been talking about? Yeah, there's too much here with Elon Musk, Pope Elon, the Roman salute, to dismiss that. These hand signs, these symbols, a lot of hand signs and symbols, like the ones we're not supposed to notice, have one meaning for the masses and a separate meaning for the initiates. So you could laugh it off. Like, okay, for example, when he was behind Trump and he was jumping up and down in Butler, that was interesting because here he is in Butler, Pennsylvania, 84 days after the shooting, after the head wound. And Musk is behind him, jumping up and down like with the touchdown sign. Well, this is the Masonic hailing sign of distress. That's the reference to the third degree where the Mason is hit on the head and then dies and symbolically is then resurrected. But it was a very pointed gesture. I think it had significance to Butler and to what we had witnessed and the overall meaning of that event. Like, I don't think these are accidental gestures, and the fact that we don't understand it is helpful to them. So it's not just some random thing. And it's funny how they're able to minimize it. It's gaslighting. It's literally gaslighting you. 1 minute, a Nazi salute. The next minute, it's perfectly harmless. I mean, that's not reality. What if he had done a middle finger? And it's like, oh, I love you so much that I wanted to say, it doesn't, they would believe it. Like, they would buy it. They say, well, when Elon Musk gives us all the middle finger, it actually means he really loves us. It's nothing negative. Like, why does he get the benefit of the doubt? What if Nick Fuentes goes around saying, oh, I just love you all so much, hitting his chest and then throwing his arm out? My third eye says the hanged man used to be called the drowned man. See, I never heard of that, but that's interesting for a few reasons. The concept of the hanged man, the suspension, drowned man. I'll have to look into it. That card is of specific interest to us here because it's used in a lot of psyops with like a lot of the tarot are, but in the hanged man shows up prominently in 9/11, the falling man's position, and then a couple of years ago you had that 33-year-old who fell into the 9/11 reflecting pool, and he was in the hanged man pose before he fell. The guy who photographed the falling man, who looked like the hanged man, Richard Drew, also photographed RFK as he fell to his death. But the idea of falling, drowning, suspension, all very intriguing here. The first 22 tarot cards are separate from the rest of them. Like if you look at your playing cards, four suits, 4 seasons, and it refers to the basically these 4 symbols that you see in occult rituals. You know, the dagger, the staff, the pentagram, and the cup. But in the playing cards, you'd see these as the heart is the cup, the pentagram's the diamond, the spades are the sword, and then the clubs are the staves. But these refer to the 4 seasons. And if you look at the number of cards, 52 weeks in a year. There's also lunar symbolism, and you add up all the pips, it gets like 365. So the playing cards are tied into the sun. And the other cards, the first 22, like the Hanged Man, Death, the Fool, the Magician, these all correspond to the letters in the Hebrew alphabet. And they have deeper levels of esoteric meaning, but they've been combined with the main deck. But they have an interesting history, and I hadn't heard about the drowned man, but wouldn't surprise me. Let's see here. Diana South, didn't RFK dump a bear in Central Park? Yeah, he was the bear dumper. Somebody dropped a dead bear in the middle of Central Park years ago. There was a news story about it, and RFK admitted to it on a podcast he was recording with Roseanne Barr. He described how he found one. He had a bear tag. He thought he might want to eat it, but instead he thought it would be funny to put it on a bike path. Gondola Wish, was there not a Q connection with the Hanging Man and Ellen DeGeneres during 2020? Not sure about that. But we should look into some of these things, because there were a lot of weird psyops with people hanging from doorknobs and the Black Eye Club. I know you had the Washington, D.C. sniper and his son after 9/11. They were leaving the Death Tarot card at their shooting sites, which is kind of strange. Echo Charlie Solomon may as well say 33. Yeah, that's the name of the shooter. Henderson Solomon is also intriguing. Let's move on here. Another thing I wanted to talk about was how before Christmas I had said, based on the movie that's coming out called The Homestead, about Los Angeles getting nuked and the ensuing chaos, I was saying that, we're going to see this devastation. Maybe LA is going to get nuked. I mean, maybe not literally, but this is what they're putting out into the psyche, into the zeitgeist. They want to paint your worldview a certain way. And so against the backdrop of Christmas and family and just shopping, you have this movie and the posters and the imagery is all about the destruction of Los Angeles. So we noted this before, and I said 2025, LA is going to get it. Well, here we are, beginning of the year, and the fires break out. And then I noted that Trump compared it to a nuke. Jay Leno compared it to a nuke. Like, that's interesting. And then Fallout 2, which was about to go into production, had to take a break because of the fires. Well, I've been seeing these headlines popping up again and again. Hughes fire, latest horrific wildfire to explode in LA, forces 30K to evacuate, torches 10 acres after, quote, nuclear prediction. So these words are like spells, they're painting a picture, but I'm just noting here that we were talking about the nuclear devastation of LA based on the movies. And again, life doesn't follow Netflix, life doesn't follow Hollywood, but fake events do. So that was just another example of what we would call predictive, concurrent, and reinforcement programming. It allows them to describe things in a certain way, to paint your interpretation of things. Gondola Wish says, now they're saying the same thing's going to happen in Phoenix. You mean another fire? Okay, moving on here. I'm just going through my notes. There's just a ton of stuff here. It's pretty rich. This is a psyop-rich environment. But we're talking about the shooter in Antioch. Let me play this clip. This is interesting, and this is something a lot of us have already concluded. This is Bill Cooper talking about how Revelation, the book of Revelation, specifically Revelation 13, may be used to manipulate us. And one of the reoccurring themes here with the Trump head wound is that it's meant to attach to Revelation. Last year, a big meme among the QAnon group, because I keep my ear on Q Street, I like to know what they're talking about. They said that JFK was Christ, and their explanation was Revelation 13 was about JFK, and that the elite changed the Bible to make him into a bad guy. But the guy who gets the head wound in Revelation is your savior. And their whole story was that they attempted to kill Jesus again, Jesus part 2, as JFK. It's bizarre, I know. But this group, this cult, went to Dealey Plaza expecting to see JFK roll up in a Ford Lincoln. I mean, this is not sane by any stretch, but I'm just pointing out that they were looking at Revelation 13 and Trump very closely, and JFK. And so this Trump head wound story is rooted in many ways in biblical lore and all this other stuff that they put into our heads. But here is Bill Cooper talking about the use of Revelation 13 to manipulate us.
And nuts if you want to, but this is the truth. Either these men are following the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is in the Bible. Mm-hmm. They're either following it, just like a plan, and bringing the prophecies in there to pass to manipulate and control those who believe in those prophecies.
So he's talking about manipulating and controlling the people who believe in the prophecies. Now, how is this any different than telling people that the ocean levels are going to rise if we don't make these changes, if we don't recycle, etc.? So you give people the big story. This will happen in the future. They all believe it, and then you can manipulate them. Now you have them recycling. And when you're recycling at the bin, you are genuflecting before an altar to state-olatry. It's government worship. It really is. I mean, you think you're doing a good thing. You think you're saving Gaia, but ultimately, no. It's an act of submission. You're basically apologizing to their God construct for your bad decisions as a consumer. You're making a deal with God. It's like they're selling indulgences is what they're doing. And not only that, but recycling is pointless and a waste of money and time.
Neutralize them, so to speak. In other words, if this is written in the Bible and God has ordained it, who am I to resist? It must come to pass, so I'm not going to try to stop it. Okay. What a perfect way to neutralize the opposition right off the bat. Or there really is a God, and what he said was going to come to pass is coming to pass.
All right, so for the most part, prophecies are all fake. But what we have with the news, and this is like with psyops in general, is they fulfill their own prophecies. But it's not a miracle. It looks like a miracle if you don't recognize how it's all just perception management and it's manipulation, big magic trick. Commenter here says, I think the last 5 years, this doesn't surprise me, it's all counterfeit. He says, right, they're trying to artificially fulfill the book. Book of Revelation says Bill Cooper is one of them. Well, Bill Cooper had Q clearance, and he claimed that he saw UFOs coming out of the ocean. And that has been a theme of late. There have been many claims, in fact, some recent ones, that the extraterrestrials are under the water and that their craft move at impossible speeds. Now, I've looked into this, but when they're talking about these sightings of things underwater, what they're really talking about is something on a radar. So it's not like they've actually seen something. Doesn't mean it's there. But underwater, unidentified underwater objects is kind of a thing. Okay, let's continue here. I'm going through my notes at minds.com/infinite plane society. So here's what I wanted to get into the other night. This is a tweet from Nick Hinton. A great Twitter account, by the way. Why did Trump reenact the ending of Fight Club? Is it because Project Mayhem is about to become a reality? Project Mayhem was also the name of a covert op in 2012 that caused Rogue AI to start its own information warfare campaign online, similar to QAnon. Now, I don't know about the second half of this tweet, but he's noting how the images that we saw of Donald Trump and Melania facing the fireworks was definitely reminiscent of the concluding scene of Fight Club. And Fight Club is an interesting one in itself because of the connections to 9/11. I mean, it's worth getting into here. There's a scene where the main character, and I think his name's actually Jack Sparrow, not Tyler Durden, but the main character in the book at least, but he's talking about wrapping, or rather covering, the columns of various buildings in explosive gelatin. As he's talking about this, you look behind him and there's the Twin Towers, the Century Plaza Twin Towers. So, these are different. The Century City Twin Towers are different from the Twin Towers, but the same architect. But he's talking about gelatin-wrapped columns with these other Twin Towers behind him. 9/11, 2001 was the scheduled date for an art group called Gelatin B to exhibit its show. Gelatin B had spent most of the year 2000 in the World Trade Center. They were working on some project, and the picture suggested that they had taken a window off and set up some platform to do some exterior shots of the World Trade Center, including something using a helicopter. So if you look at this, it looks like, if there's any explanation for who organized the demolition or how was it performed, who did the jumpers, who shot a lot of the footage that would be used on that day, it would have been under the cover of this art group and its projects. Well, this group was scheduled to perform on 9/11, and it never happened, obviously, or did it? And interestingly enough, the group's called Gelatin B, which again I think connects to the gelatin-wrapped columns referenced in Fight Club, as the Century City Towers are shown in the background. Again, that's just and then there's another scene, Synchromorpheus pointed this out. There's a similar scene in Leave the World Behind. So here's the scene if you haven't seen it. This is you see the flashing as the buildings all start collapsing. And let me see if he has a picture of Leave the World Behind for me. I'll have to find it. Oh, here it is. That's one of them. You had this pair, this boy and girl. In fact, one of the first things I noticed about this movie were their T-shirts. T-shirts are so revealing in these things. I mean, they're so ham-fisted. My only criticism of Leave the World Behind was it was too obvious. It's not Kubrick. But look here, Obey and NASA. So Leave the World Behind has a lot of different meanings. It's an anagram for Behold the End War Live, which is what Rose does when she's watching TV at the end of the movie in the bunker. Rose is correlated with Donnie Darko, which is also interesting because Donnie Darko is Trump. So there's just layers to this movie. I'm going to have to rewatch it, honestly, because 2 times isn't enough to pick up on everything. But the shirt that says Obey has the face of Andre the Giant. Now, this design was by the same artist, the same designer, who did the Obama Hope poster. So here you have kind of Obama in the background here, but Obey NASA and Leave the World Behind going into the bunkers, and the whole story of the blackout and everything is highly suggestive of lockdowns and fallout, and how our experience of the end of the world, or World War III, is going to be through the TV, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's how they're able to completely control our worldview. We are a captive audience. It's like Mystery Science Theater 3000. The captive audience forced to endure terrible science fiction until they go crazy. Okay, so here's the scene, I think, from... No, that's not it. Anyway, the Trumps were reenacting it. Probably not a coincidence. Gondola Wish says Chuck Palahniuk is an extremely bizarre individual. I'm not familiar with him outside of his book Fight Club, which I read, and I think I read Haunted, which was pretty sick. In fact, it was very sick. Like, it was just pure shock, I think was the point. Okay, let's see here. The Antioch High School shooter Solomon Henderson made a bunch of references to other shooters taking photos of himself, imitating their poses, and dressing up as them. So I often talk about how they all exist within the mainstream media's fictional universe, and all these fake characters reference other characters. When I saw this Natalie Rupnow shooter, I said, look, she's got a KMFDM shirt. That's a reference to the Littleton shooters. And then you had Audrey Hale, who referenced the Littleton shooters in her own manifesto. But this is how they reinforce the programming. All these shooters reference each other. They're inspired by each other. And let's say this one was real. We know all the other ones were fake. So now are we going to say that the media is culpable? That they created this stochastic terrorism, copycat violence? They created this? No, this is as fake as them. Henderson Solomon and Samad Charlie. Okay, so he's literally going through and imitating all these various shooters. Fascinating. There he is again at the Burzum shirt. Then he had his ChatGPT manifesto, for the most part. Some parts of it wouldn't have gone through the ChatGPT filters. Okay, moving on. Going to scroll through my notes. This is not exactly new, but I'm going through my notes because I'm working on the IPS deep dive number 2. And the next one's going to be on Joker and the overlapping of the Batman Joker fictional universe, Gotham, with the real world. I often talk about how Netflix precedes what happens in the news, but a lot of our conditioning is also coming from these various movie franchises that are very popular. And popularity is one of the key indicators that it's going to be used for propaganda. I watched The Madness because it was number 1. I had no interest in it. And I watched it, and I'm like, wow, this is 100% preparing us for the Luigi thing. And it brought up, it introduced us to the next phase of Elon Musk's character as this, I guess, what do you call him? This, with Trump, this sidekick role. But mainly, though, in the movie The Madness, in the show, it's inferred that he stole the election, which, again, has been a theme recently. So here's an image of Batman with the burning bat behind him. And I want to mention, too, that the bat has been used as a phoenix symbol for some time. But it started in the Batman movies, the burning bat. And by Phoenix, like Joaquin Phoenix, all this Phoenix symbolism encoded into these movies. I think it specifically also refers to 2020. Because in Dark Knight Rises, as I was showing, there's predictive programming for that. When he tells his sidekick to put on a mask to protect those that he loves. And he gives him this smoke bomb that looks like a COVID ball. That was predictive of 2020. But the burning bat, too. Because if anything was the excuse for shutting everything down, burn it down, which we saw, and build back better, it would have been the Bat Phoenix. It was the bat. So, in other words, this was just highly predictive of this, the Phoenix cycle, where you destroy. It's the revolutionary thing. You destroy, you build on the ashes, and that's what we had witnessed in 2020. So on March 4th, oh, I forgot about that. On that day, March 4th, 2022, a piece of space junk hit the moon. That has to be significant. I'll have to look into that again. But on March 4th, 2022, the surviving Boston bombing terrorist, Joker Sarnoff, affectionately known as the Joker, had his death penalty reinstated the same day the new Batman movie came out. The Batman-Joker dialectic is used in many of the major psychological operation narratives. Even the bomb holes left by the CGI planes on the WTC towers look like the Batman logo. Interesting connection there. Truman B3000 says Elon Musk proposed a $20 billion tunnel from New York to London. This idea of hyperloop and tunnels weirdly ties into Musk's obsession with the number 42, ties into Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland, and she's falling through this like zero G. She's just kind of floating down into Wonderland. But it was Lewis Carroll who posited the idea that if you could drill a hole from one end of the Earth to the other and fall in one side, you would fall, accelerate, and then you would decelerate, and you'd arrive at the other side. I mean, it's this whole mathematical formula that would describe your trajectory, but they said it would take 42 minutes to fall through the Earth. That's kind of where that got started. I thought, is this the first description, like the first hypothetical idea of like space travel, frictionless travel? I mean, is that kind of, I was wondering if that was some, but anyway, this ties into Elon Musk and his company called Boring, which does the tunnel boring. Interestingly, one of the drills that they use to do these tunnels underground is called the Alice. And it's not called Alice because of Alice in Wonderland. It's called Alice because the name of one of the designers. They say it's not because of Alice in Wonderland. But the idea of the tunneling through the Earth and all this stuff with Musk, I think also reinforces his Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka aspect. Willy Wonka, the tunnel that goes to the land where the candy's made. Traveling at a high rate of speed. I mean, this hyperloop thing is likely how they can fake space travel, in my opinion. All right, let's move on. I'm going through my Twitter feed at IPS Think Tank. This is pretty bad. This shooter, bad as in cringy. Here's the shooter making TikTok videos. I guess this is some kind of I don't know if it's a challenge or maybe it's just a trendy dance. School shooters today are so pathetic. Who's going to take this guy seriously, says Princess Ketamine Queen. Probably an Elon Musk sock puppet. But look at this guy. He's prancing around with his hands on his head like a bunny. I don't know the meaning of it. But like this is like, yeah, let's go ahead and censor the internet right now. McAfee came back. Who cares? I can't be bothered. Now, I don't know what to make of this. This is a cruise line in Australia, P&O Cruises. They had their staff walk out with costumes meant to represent upside down snow cones, but they look like KKK. But they should get a pass. If Musk can get a pass, they can get a pass. In fact, they should be able to walk around with their upside down snow cone hats and express their love for everybody on the boat by putting a hand to their chest and then saluting out at 45 degrees up. I mean, that's pretty much the kind of excuse that they've given to Musk. So this is excusable. 17-year-old shooter Solomon Henderson live streamed the attack on Kick and posted his manifesto on Instagram before it was taken down. He had a Q&A. One other point about this shooting that makes me think it's fake. It's all minors. These are all minors involved. These aren't people who should even be named on TV. It's a crime scene. I mean, you get presumption of innocence. How do we know he was the only shooter? Has enough time even passed for us to get all the facts? Why is the media being fed this entire narrative and the manifesto and the bigger story that involves Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes? Why are they throwing this all out there if there hasn't even been enough time to conduct autopsies to ensure that this person killed that person? In other words, there's no, the regular process isn't being observed here. It's what I call Scooby-Doo justice. Like one episode of this cartoon, at the end, they unmask the bad guy. And that's what we have here. You have the whole story neatly packaged, happens in 24 hours. Perfect for a society with no attention span. Like Miles Mathis says, they got rid of serial killers and replaced them with mass shooters because we don't have the attention span to pay attention to one killer for 6 months. And I agree with that. Okay, so he is the big news right now. I'm waiting to see any feedback from Candace Owens. I'm waiting also to see what Nick Fuentes has to say about it. Now, to my point about the character in The Madness, the billionaire representing Musk, listen to this. I mentioned this the other day. To who it may concern, as a former ex-employee, I can't reveal my identity, but Elon Musk took over, everything changed. It started as a social media company but became darker. I was part of a team directly ordered to manipulate Twitter's systems to influence the 2024 U.S. presidential election. It was not subtle. It was not ethical. So the story of Musk interfering in the election was actually referenced in The Madness. That's why I think it's significant to continually bring that particular movie up. And I thought it was just dealing with Musk and Luigi and Nick Fuentes and his assassination attempt. But now I'm seeing it ties into this wider narrative of Helter Skelter, of Turner Diaries, the black skinhead thing. And then bringing Candace Owens into it is also very intriguing. Lane Dion says, they never accomplish anything to do with the manifestos, pointless acts that then help the state. Yeah, it gets rid of the need to rely on due process to figure out what happened. It lets the public decide in the court of public opinion. They read the manifesto and they just agree, okay, something must be done. It works great. All manifestos should just be considered props, and they're very self-serving from the perspective of the state. Like he basically said, if you read between the lines, if only I hadn't had to be exposed to X and to Ye, this never would have happened. If only I hadn't listened to Candace Owens, this wouldn't have happened. Because Candace Owens would I think would be relatable to him if he's a black white supremacist. And this is like some kind, like, you know, I often talk about her because I think that she's a contrived character. I don't believe she could really believe any of the things that she says. In fact, I'm pretty sure none of them do. Okay, let's see what we have here. A lot of people have been talking about Melania's hat. And before this, in our Discord server, people have been posting this story with Aaron Rodgers. Has been talking about this character, this Black Hat Man character, the Hat Man. So if you haven't seen that story, Aaron Rodgers won't stop talking about the Hat Man since his ayahuasca trip. So he takes some drugs, and he sees this man in black with this wide-brimmed hat. That's kind of the story. And apparently he's talking about it quite a lot. Well, many people have compared the Hat Man to Melania Trump. And here we go. Finding out Melania Trump is the Hat Man wasn't on my 2025 bingo card. A lot of talk about this hat. Hamburglar, Spy versus Spy, Design Authority, The Strangers. I think it's Saturnian. I think that's the main thing. Dinah South says, who writes the manifesto? It's probably the Government Actors Guild, where they have the crisis actors. I'm guessing it's ChatGPT. I think that's what it is. It would make a lot more sense to me. They're replacing crisis actors with AI, with simulation, the training dummies that can bleed and talk. I was talking about one yesterday, some animatronic training dummy for casualty simulations that has a feature where you talk through its microphone and it will speak, but it'll distort your voice. So it sounds like you're a 5-year-old. Like that's the kind of technology that they have right now. But I think the main thing here is the fact that there's just so much mis and disinformation that it doesn't even matter anymore. The truth gets submerged instantly. Mae Musk is a goose-stepping Nazi like her father, Joshua Helderman, who was a Hitler supporter who moved to Pretoria 2 years after they started advertising it as a whites-only paradise. So this is an article by Jim Stewartson, who's been talking a lot about the roots of Musk, and he... this is a clip that he found. This is Musk's father.
Werner von Braun's book spoke about that the head of the Mars colony would be called the Elon.
This is it. The new head of the Mars colony would be called the Elon. And he suggested that Musk was named for this. Again, if you haven't read it, Mars, A Technical Tale by Werner von Braun. The picture of Werner von Braun hanging out with Walt Disney really says it all. But this is intriguing here just to watch the gaslighting working. It works. Gaslighting works. Lying is the most powerful form of magic. If there is such a thing as magic, forget the ritual stuff, the ceremonies. The most powerful form of reality manipulation is the spoken word. It's the lie. It's just really incredible. So he comes out and he does this. He could have goose-stepped. He could have worn an upside-down snow cone hat and done the Nazi salute. And he would have all of these groups basically taking his side. Oh, he didn't mean it. Like, what would he have to do for them to take it seriously? Like, how does he emphasize, no, I actually do mean this? Like, can he? It's just really, it's gaslighting. Like, it's not rational to pretend like it isn't what it was. It's some kind of a psyop, some kind of a joke, something like that. So here's some more information regarding von Braun. Okay, here we go. Nazi recruited many German scientists after the end of World War II. Many were a member of the Nazi Party. The work of these scientists was instrumental in the U.S. space program. That's why it always surprised me that Eric Dubé had such vitriol for NASA. Like, he hated NASA. Maybe he still does. Like, I don't have, hate for any of this stuff. I'm pretty impartial about it. But it's like, you think of all people, Dubé would have some love for some fellow Nazis, but he's like, no, NASA's bad. So they're the bad Nazis then. Okay. Okay, let's see. Let's continue. Lean Dion, BB came out in support of Elon. Oh, give me a break. Michael King posted this. New Dawn, Golden Age. No, I've seen this before, and I've seen people wave it away, but no, I noticed this a while ago, and I never really brought it up, but I think there's something to it. So the book that contains the rituals that, a lot of the rituals and ceremonies of the main religion of the elite is the Golden Dawn. This is the Thelemic group, an offshoot of the OTO, the Order of the Templar Orientis. And this Golden Dawn is about a new age. Like this idea of this new age being what happens with the death of the sun god, the patriarchy, the old Aeon, and the inauguration of this new god, this new entity, which is an amalgamation of Isis and Osiris. It's meant to be an androgen. They call it Horus, the child. And Horus is associated in this religious paradigm with Mars. So the age of Horus is what we're entering into, or the age of Mars. And that's why Musk is highly significant in this story, because it's not about taking us to Mars, some distant paradise in the sky. It's about making Earth Mars. And what is Mars? Mars is code. The idea of the age of Mars, age of Horus, it's a code for the new age, which is a revolution. It's a big change from what was before, but it's specifically the destruction of many of the traditions of the past and worldviews of the past, specifically the West, Christianity. These things are all being systematically torn down as they bring out the replacement. And the God in this new religion is described as an androgen child, a crowned, conquering child, they say. And it's all metaphorical. It's basically the child doesn't have a past. And when I first saw Greta speaking at the UN, I thought, okay, here's a child excoriating the adults. You made the world unsafe, just like the other child at the time. You had David Hogg. You made the world unsafe. So you have these children, and she was inspired by David Hogg to do that, she said. So you have these children representing the next age, and they're telling their parents, your ways condemned the world. Your ways made things dangerous. And that's kind of the message of this. It's this new religion that doesn't have any attachments to the past, and so they have to tear down the past, like iconoclasm. That's why Aleister Crowley is called a Satanist. It's not that he is, but he's more of an iconoclast and a blasphemer, and it's all about destroying old traditions and traditional moral values, etc. But I was walking through a Walgreens, and I saw this shelf full of dolls. that were all like this little blonde girl with braids, and I was like, oh, that's not Greta, that's Frozen. So I was thinking, okay, Elsa from Frozen looks like Greta. There's got to be a message here. Well, then I saw this headline and it said, Disney's Frozen 2 has a message for the Greta generation. So the main character is excoriating her parents, saying, you destroyed the kingdom of Arendelle, I have to fix it. So it's the same basic story. Girl with the braids telling the parents they screwed it up, and the whole Frozen thing was programming children to accept the messages of Greta. And that's what I had mentioned when this thing had happened. And I described Greta as more or less fulfilling the role, as many of these activists do, of the new age telling the old age that they're done and that their ways are going to be replaced. So that's kind of what I thought with Greta. And then the crowned conquering child, I thought Corona, crowned, there might have been some significance there. But moving on. So the new age, the Golden Dawn, and then some have suggested that the Golden Dawn has a connection to Donald Trump. I think Donald means world ruler, but the Golden Dawn, the Saturnian age, the gold hair, the gold towers, the temple to Apollo in his penthouse. You can find all the gold stuff with Trump. And if you look at him as a world stage character, this all does actually make sense. So then, moreover, this religion, this paradigm itself is about transitioning us into the age of Mars and the age of Horus, which gets deep into Musk's character when you look at the Kabbalistic symbolism. There's a reason why he went to a store called Abracadabra. You know, when he bought that costume, the red suit of armor with the upside down cross and the ram's head. Well, he went to the store called Abracadabra, buys this thing, and he goes to this Halloween party. Well, that's not insignificant. The occult date of Halloween is one. But two, the word of the new age, the word of the new aeon, according to Alistair Crowley and this group, is abracadabra. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. And so I look into it. Look at the fourth tarot card. It's the Emperor. And he's in a red suit of armor, and he has a symbol of the ram, which is exactly what Musk had. Well, that's because the ram is associated with Mars. Red with Mars. The Emperor associated to Mars. Emperor is the fourth card, fourth planet. And if you look at the, Aries, of course, is the ram. So when you get into the symbolism and the colors, like, for example, Mars is associated with iron and then red. Like Venus, copper, green. So Mars, red, iron. You have Westworld. Westeros. So in Game of Thrones, you have Westeros, the kingdom. And they're fighting this Game of Thrones for the Iron Throne. So Westeros' Iron Throne is won by the House of Stark. So interestingly enough, on Mars, they have found a feature that looks like the emblem of the House of Stark. So I'm like, that's an Iron Throne reference. And then Iron Man is Tony Stark. And Elon Musk is Iron Man. Elon Musk is Tony Stark. Robert Downey Jr., who played Iron Man, said his inspiration for Tony Stark was Elon Musk. So it's pretty layered. Then he has his starship, and they found the Starship Enterprise, and the logo from Star Trek, rather, on Mars. So when you look at the tie-ins, we live in a Disney universe, Planet Netflix, but all of these characters have deep ties in narrative, archetypes, and the occult symbolism of their different roles. Let me go through your comments here. Virgin says, yes, the Hat Man comes to people in sleep paralysis dreams when they're on drugs, including high doses of Benadryl. He makes contracts and deals to get what is owed him. Fascinating. I haven't heard that. But in Dark City, you have the Hat Man types who rearrange the world when everybody's sleeping. And Megalopolis has references to Dark City. Their design authority, who are the ones who fake all the news, who freeze time, they control everything, they look like the Hat Man as well. They look like the Strangers. And it's all about Saturn, because Saturn represents control of time. God of death, the cycles of death, rebirth, the agrarian cycle, the Grim Reaper at the end of the year, the harvest, rather. Lean says, Elon's parents are effing weird. Gondola Wish Mars is old news for the breakaway civilization post-World War II. Gondola Wish, Age of Apollo bloodline. Now, there's some interesting connection with Trump and Revelation 9/11, Abaddon, King of the Abyss, the King, and the Abyss thing. This all ties in. This stuff goes pretty deep, but it just shows you how there's an occult side to it. But the name of the angel over the bottomless pit is Abaddon, or, as we've been saying here, Abaddon, which is referenced in One-Eye Jack's new song. And at the time that Trump was going to jail, they started referring to him as a mafia don. They really hyped up that side of him. But that's in Hebrew. It's also it's Apollyon in Greek. And some have connected this, of course, Apollyon to Napoleon, which is all interesting because it means the destroyer or the exterminator or the terminator, which is another tie-in. But anyway, the 9/11 Revelation, Revelation 9/11, Revelation 13, as William Cooper said, these are all bits of lore and story and myth that they build into these characters. And a lot of it's modern. That's why I'm mentioning Musk and how he's connected to everyone from Gene Wilder to Tony Stark to Pope Constantine, Henry Ford. These are composites. These are Frankenstein characters. They're mashups. Lean Dion says, taking consciousness to Mars, Elon. Okay, now, I think Elon Musk's wife, Grimes, are they still together, Musk and Grimes? Grimes had said that she would be interested in sending her mind to Mars, like uploaded into some kind of a hard drive. I mean, what if they eventually sell people on this? You know, Mars is a sim. Beam your consciousness up into it. Put your body into stasis. You know, that was the story in Vanilla Sky. Cryogenics as life extension. And while you're cryogenically frozen, your mind goes into a simulation. And the idea is that you'll wake up in a few hundred years when they have the technology to resurrect you. Salty says, Elon got so pissed off at my meme at his costume being made out of the red shoes, or what the red shoes are made out of. He kicked me off Twitter account. You know, I know for a fact that there's some shenanigans with Twitter and X. And I was blocked from Spaces. I could not stream on Spaces. So I never built a crowd there. I just gave up on it. I thought, why would that be? And there are two different individuals who work for Starlink Security that were following me. One of them just was following me and Musk, and I messaged him. And this was after we pointed out Mousegate. So there does seem to be a lot of damage control. And if you are speaking the truth, yeah, you're going to be drowned out. It doesn't matter. You could speak the truth on primetime TV and no one's going to believe you. So it's basically pointless within the box. It only makes sense outside of the box. But even still, there is some damage control efforts. Okay, let's see here. Thinkerbell says, Walt Disney's cryogenically frozen. I've heard about that his head is like frozen somewhere. Fascinating. Probably true. I'll have to look that up. Because they said it was a rumor, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Vanilla Sky is a movie worth breaking down. That's one of the first movies where I started to realize that there's a subtext here that isn't meant for the regular viewers. I'm like, okay, so he's 33 years old. He dies. 3-day ceremony. He resurrects. The woman who causes him to come back is named Sophia. So you have this Gnostic Christ Magdalene connection, this death resurrection ceremony. Everything in the movie, the soundtrack, the lyrics, the graffiti, everything tied into this story. It's just extremely layered. Brilliantly done. And I think there's other layers to it as well. I happen to think, and I'll have to put this into maybe its own breakdown, but I happen to think that Eyes Wide Shut and Vanilla Sky are connected. I mean, different directors. Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick's last film, starring Tom Cruise, and then the movie Vanilla Sky, it's Cameron Crowe directed it, but there's this connection. It's starring Tom Cruise. There's this connection between the two. Originally, Vanilla Sky is called Open Your Eyes. So Eyes Wide Shut, Open Your Eyes. It has a a connection, which is the same character merging between the two, if you look at it as a subtextual story. And one of the breakdowns of Eyes Wide Shut by Chartword, who I trust, I mean, his analysis is brilliant. He's found all kinds of 9/11 stuff in all of Kubrick's work, specifically The Shining. But, and that's a Chartword. I'll have to put a note here. But he suggested that Eyes Wide Shut was actually about JFK Jr. faking his death and going undercover, which is interesting in itself. And in that context, you could look at Vanilla Sky as his reemergence, and it's built into the subtext, and it's pretty obvious if you know what you're looking for, if you catch the main story. But speaking of The Shining, I'm watching this show right now. It's directed by or produced by Courtney Cox from Friends. It's called Shining Vale, and I'm watching it because it's a Kubrick inspired. I think there's a Kubrick reference. It's about a writer going crazy. They have a bar at the house. She talks to ghosts. So I'm watching it just to see if there's anything meaningful in it. I mean, not every single movie necessarily has to contain copious government propaganda for what's to come, even though they reiterate it just by their frame of reference. But I don't know. I have to check. Thinkerbell says, Kubrick 9/11 Shining. Well, yeah, okay. Many people note that Kubrick has Apollo 11 references all over The Shining. That's been talked about ad nauseum, documentaries about it, Room 237. So Apollo 11. But there's even more in support of 9/11 that is overlooked by these researchers, which I think is unusual. And the sequel to it, called Dr. Sleep, has a psychic child or baby who predicts 9/11. It's just like it's built into it. But the story has the movie has a few scenes that you could interpret in this way. In fact, if you want to see where I'm coming from with this, I'll have to go ahead and do a special breakdown on it. Let me go through all of Chartword's stuff in an IPS deep dive. I've been trying to think what to do for number 3. I'm working on number 2, but I'd rather just bring it all out at once, because the main premise of it is this: that the major transformative events that change the course of history are faked. They're just movies that are processed as real because they're broadcast through all the news. That's the main premise here. And they hire directors, they recruit directors who are the best at their job to be propaganda vectors. And the scale of the fakery is difficult to fathom if you've never heard this before. The idea that they could fake a school shooting is shocking to some people. But get past the shock value. How simple is it? I mean, you're really just talking about a run-of-the-mill drill, but you just have it done more theatrically. But this is a weapon of Psywar. It's their main tool. Creating contemporary myths, steering the news cycles, steering public perception. We have an invisible government for all intents and purposes, and this transcends government. I almost look at government as a subset of monolithic mind control, almost a distraction. But in this big picture, Kubrick figures prominently in a number of major events that transformed the world. And this would tie in things like even the Manhattan Project, not specifically Kubrick, but any kind of construct they introduce onto the world stage through the TV that becomes a facet of our everyday life, these hyperstitions. These things are inserted through these movies into our worldview, into our belief systems. And yeah, Kubrick is a big name, but he's not the only one. 9/11 has his fingerprints all over it, but also James Cameron, also Tom Clancy. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of directors and writers whose work has been appropriated for that particular psyop. Not that they're all in the know about all of it. They could just be prostituting their work. Why would they have to know? But I imagine that certain ones would have high security clearance and would be very much in the know. The Obamas, for example. The Obamas and their Leave the World Behind. But I will do a special IPR breakdown on the work of Chartword, kind of an enigmatic individual who put out these incredible breakdowns that I've never seen anything like it. And when I saw his work, it goes as deep as we go into our work. But when I saw his work on 9/11, it became even clearer to me that this is not anomalous, but it's systemic, that the fakery is structural, that the news media does report real news, but at times they are serving as an instrument of propaganda for the government, as propaganda vectors, but that the entertainment media is specifically entrained to the news. That the big entertainment has all been co-opted. I mean, it's easy to imagine an artist being co-opted to serve a purpose. Well, what's the difference between an artist and a movie production company? They don't even have to know. There's total plausible deniability. It's so compartmentalized. But what we have discerned here is not only do we have a predictive model by looking at entertainment to see what's to come, but we've been making accurate predictions based on it. Even before I watch a movie, I will point it out. This movie is going to be the subject of my study tonight because it's number one, and it's going to have some impact. It's going to have some influence on what happens next, as far as it's going to relate, it's going to set narratives, it's going to put characters on the world stage, and it absolutely did. And the madness is one of the greatest examples lately. Between Musk, Nick Fuentes, Lord Loomer, and Stu Peters, and Elon Musk, and Luigi Mangione, all showing up in a fictional format before they have their on-world stage performance of the same basic role. It's a closed system. You know, our mainstream media is a fictional universe, and they're able to manipulate us through this internalized Truman Show. Gondola Wish, can you touch on the significance of the trump card in Tarot? Yeah, the major arcana, the trump cards, I've heard them called the keys more commonly. But that is because the group I studied, it was called the BOTA, and they had this course on studying the tarot cards and their meanings. And they referred to the first 22 cards as keys because they said, or they taught, that these symbols and these characters and these scenarios have a sort of a universal meaning, that you're looking at the evolution of a soul through the course of these 22 cards. The Fool, birth to the universe, and that by internalizing these images, you would therefore open up, like keys, open up doors to communicating with the subconscious, doors to the latent intuition. Fascinating concept, but yeah, I don't know why they were called Trump specifically, but yeah, there are so many tarot cards that have Trump on them. And Trump has often been depicted in tarot cards. What was it, the Economist cover? I think it'd be worth our time to go through all of the majors, one by one. I think it would be worth our time. There's just so much information in these things. And these things are also used almost like an encyclopedia. They contain all these symbols, including the other ones, the solar stuff, where if you memorized them, you would have a lot of the keys to understand. Because the idea with this is esoteric. You have the surface level interpretation, but then if you've been given the insider information, then you could see the same thing everyone else does, but extrapolate more information. You would have the esoteric side. And there's an esoteric side to media. Thinkerbell says, here I am thinking I can avoid the mainstream predictive programming by watching old movies, and dang it, Kubrick is in on it too. Yeah, I would argue that mainstream media was never independent. Media was never not controlled. And they've just consolidated over time. It looks like it's fragmented. Everybody's a broadcaster. Everybody can publish. It looks like it's a free-for-all, but it's still a monopoly. There's a worldview monopoly that has been unbroken from the beginning. And all of the old movies. I mean, look, okay, JFK assassination, predictive programming, you had Suddenly, it's a Frank Sinatra. You had the Manchurian Candidate, both of which were watched by Lee Harvey Oswald. And I think there was a third one. And then on the day of the event, the commentators were talking about various breaches in security that led to assassinations. And then 2 months before JFK was killed, he and Jackie made a home movie while they were on vacation involving Secret Service, where they pretended to assassinate him, and they covered him in Heinz 57. What's up, Francis Edward Penguini? Yeah, you want to call in? Let me open phones. I'd like to try out my phones, actually. We haven't had a chance to. Let me turn them on. It's 505-510-4226. I have a new computer. I had to replace it. I've had a few bumps in the road in the last couple of weeks, but no big deal. While the computer was down, I worked on that music video. So if you haven't seen Dawn of a New Day, I'll make sure to get you a link to it. I'll post it below. Okay, phones will be open here now if you want to call in, 505-510-4226. And I have a plan to get the tabloid out next month. And those of you who have been emailing me who want to contribute, obviously I'll be hitting you up with that and we'll work it out. I have enough content for, 3, 4, 5 issues right now. It's just piling up. But as I said, a lot of it's evergreen. It's not, it doesn't have to be topical, because the idea of parallel media is we're observing from the outside the workings of the world stage. We have a separate and parallel record of things. Okay, here we are. Hey, caller, can you hear me okay? Give me just... Hey, you hear me okay, or do I need to adjust my settings?
No, that was good. I think for like a second, half a second, it kind of tapped out, but now you're good.
Okay, so what do you think about the Golden Dawn? Is that what you're calling on?
Oh, no, well, the Golden Dawn, I know a little bit about that, but no, I was calling about the JFK stuff.
Okay, yeah, what's up with the JFK stuff? Did they unveil anything?
No, there's ever rarely an unveiling of anything. But no, I am noticing something, and I just put it in the gilded, but of course you're on, so nobody's going to see it. The thing that's being pushed a bunch is this idea about the driver, Secret Service driver, being the shooter, and that's catching a lot of momentum apparently for some reason on the Twitter X. But correct me if I'm wrong. That's why I wanted to ask if anybody else knows. But isn't that originally, I think that's a Bill Cooper theory originally, about the driver being the shooter. Have you heard that, or does anybody in the chat, have they heard that?
I think you're right. I think it was Bill Cooper who started that. And if you look at one of the still shot, or one of the frames from the Zapruder film, it does look like the driver is pointing a gun over his shoulder. It does look like that.
Right, but it's so blurry, it's so blurry. But the weird thing about it, though, was that then Bill Cooper goes on to embellish it, which, some people like him, some people don't. But I guess this would be one of those situations that would kind of detract from him, where, so I don't know if anyone else has seen the video that I saw way back in the day, but he talks about actually like that, the driver being the guy, but then also that the driver put this, poison from a fish, some extremely poisonous fish, like a fucking blowfish or some shit like that. But yeah, apparently I don't know why he would embellish it. It's it could just be the driver who shot him. But no, he goes on to add that there's a poison from some fish that was on the bullet, and that's how he shot him. I don't know if anybody else has seen that video, or it's been wiped off the internet or what, but it's out there, or it was, but I don't know if it still is.
Fish story. That sounds to me like James Bond or something. Yeah, it sounds like he's reaching.
Right. And it's why embellish it further? Why not just be the driver shot him and that was it?
Have you heard the one that Jackie? Have you heard the one that Jackie shot him?
No, I have not heard that, but I wouldn't doubt that that's out there also, which is hilarious. So anything's possible, I guess. But
yeah, one theory is she was an assassin, and it does look like she puts her hand to his head and shoots him. But I've heard that explained as, no, he was a dummy, a Jim Henson puppet, and this was a movie set, and she was pulling the wire to activate the squib that causes his head to blow up. And then when she's crawling on the back of the car, which he gets shot, why is she crawling on the back of the car? What's she reaching for? Well, that was the squib can that she was
Yeah,
grabbing.
or like I guess like devil's advocate, they would say that she was about to, she's trying to like get the hell out of there herself. Like, get me the fuck out of here. My husband's head is blown off. But so this is also interesting to get into, I guess, because then you have people like human vibration, and I don't know. I worded it as like taking the easy way out and just being like, well, JFK never existed in the first place, and like none of it existed, and blah blah blah. Which, it's
Okay,
anything's
I can
possible,
explain
but like
that. Not anything's possible. I mean, that's.
no, that's all subjective.
But
Right?
I know where they get that from. Here's where they get that from. They're looking at the news with
Being
the
high on mushrooms. But go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
well, they're looking at the news through the lens of this is depicting reality, and it's obviously fake. Therefore, reality's fake. They go too far. Instead of recognizing that
Yeah.
there's the objective reality and then there's the fictions they impose onto it. And so I think when they lean into simulation theory, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They're going too far.
Yeah, and it's just that's what I mean by like it's taking the easy way out. Like you don't want to analyze or think about anything at all. You just want to be like, it's just all fake. Like, yeah, which I kind of get that sometimes. Even with I like to push. I'm hard on the Civil War research right now with Lincoln and stuff, and you could easily just push that one off too and be like, oh, Civil War's totally fake and Lincoln was fake. It's like, well, okay, maybe, but not totally. Like,
It's lazy. It's lazy to think that we can have a conclusive answer. Like at the end of the night, it's all just fake. No, I'm sorry. Where I'm at, we don't have all the answers. We have known unknowns. We have what we know and a bunch of crap we no longer believe. But I'm under no impression that we're going to be able to end the night with, we have conclusions here. No, we don't. And some people aren't happy not having all the answers. It's like, no, I don't know all the answers. I don't have a complete model. If you think you do, you're deluded, whether you're a ball earther, a flat earther, or a simulation earther.
And it's better to, to acknowledge that, to be like, I don't have enough information to determine something at this time. And also the fact, I always point out is that sometimes that could be your answer is that, if this is like too much of my energy to take to determine this, then I should just leave it alone. Like, I don't need to always have an answer. I don't need to just say it's all fake. Like, there are some things that you're never going to find an answer to, perhaps, and then it's better to just leave them alone and be like, you know what, I don't have the answer to this, and I was going to leave it alone instead. But, that might be a situation like that.
Yeah, good. It's a valid point. It's a valid point. We have to be nuanced here. You can't be a low information believer, and you shouldn't be a low information non-believer. If you're going to say it's fake, you have to have damn good reason. You have to be able to contradict every photo of JFK, every interaction with him, and you can't do that. So it's a nuance here. I think we have to be informed non-believers or informed believers. I don't think that there needs to be this just rejection of reality itself. That's nihilistic.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Agnosticism sometimes is the progressive way to go. Not progressive in the bad sense that we all know what I mean. It's appropriate in some senses. But that was mostly it. Like Bill Cooper pushed that poison fish idea for a reason, and it just like throws more muddies the water somewhere, I guess you could say.
Yes.
So he had so much good info, but then he would do shit like that, or like alien spaceships coming out of the water, or all this stuff. It's like, why?
It was a different era.
He hated Alex Jones.
It was a different era, though. He hated Alex Jones. He called him out before Jones was big.
Exactly, and that gives him so much credibility. But then just things like this, like fish poison on a bullet. It's like, damn, man, like you had credibility and you lost it, and you had it, and there's so much. But anyway, okay.
Sounds like your children's going crazy. Okay, all right, thanks for the call. Have a great night.
Yeah, take it easy. Yep.
All right. I think his child was trying to get in on the call. Lean Dion says, Jackie kept the blood-stained dress on after saying, people need to see what they did to Jack. That photo of them all gathered, a lot of smiles. Yeah, that was grotesque. So she's there with the bloody dress, and they're all hanging out, and they're swearing in LBJ. Like, where was her shock? Where is the trauma? This is why I think it's notable that, and this just came out, as far as like what came out of the JFK files, the most relevant thing to have been released came out 3 months ago. It was in Vanity Fair. And they haven't even released it all yet. It's the story why JFK staged his own assassination. Did we all see this one? It's from Vanity Fair. Now, we only have still shots. We have screen grabs. Vanity Fair, why JFK staged his own murder in a James Bond-inspired spy film 2 months before his assassination. Okay, I mentioned James Bond because I know it would have been an influence at the time. But here we have a story where not just Jackie and JFK, but the Secret Service and some of his friends were involved with a lot of Heinz 57 in staging or faking a movie or an assassination for a movie. And this was on September 22nd, so exactly 2 months before. And here's a scene, one of the shots, where their friend has a noose around his neck and is covered in ketchup. But the entire 16-minute film has not been released. The author of this piece only produced some screen grabs. I'm hoping they release it in its entirety. He remarked on the similarity, the eerie similarity, the coincidental similarity between some of the shots and some of what we saw in the Zapruder film. Says here, this is the strangest thing. Yeah, 2 months later, he would be assassinated. And the guy who was part of this in the Secret Service was the head Secret Service agent on 11/22. This is the piece in Vanity Fair. I learned of the movie from Paul Landis, the Secret Service agent who released a memoir, The Final Witness. In a recent investigation for Vanity Fair, I uncovered footage from the film and confirmed it did in fact take place and that one of the agents had to appear in the movie and the director was Jackie. They did this at Hammersmith Farms. And this again was 2 months before. And I didn't know this about her, but Jackie was enamored with experimental film and wanted to direct movies. While JFK was in office, they had this retreat they would go to, and that's where this all happened. But what it says here is she made an unusual request. She wanted to make a movie, a spy movie, and wanted the agents to participate. And this involved, as you see these pictures here, it says here, for one scene, the director, Jackie, had members of the Secret Service pretend like they heard gunshots. So she has them up there looking down at the car, like the Zapruder film, and they have to go in and they see JFK lying on the ground dead. I mean, what do you make of that? All right, phones are still open for the next 15 minutes or so, 505-510-4226. We've been talking about Solomon Henderson, Metascripted Madness, Obama, Jennifer Aniston, and Leave the World Behind. Then we have the story John McAfee's X account has been hacked, but he says it's not hacked. Why is McAfee relevant here? I think he's relevant because people believe that he gave computers to all the bad guys and he's hacked all their computers and he has all the goods, all the information. There was no dead man switch. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller? Can you hear me okay? We'll give it a few seconds. Again, just give it a few seconds. I appreciate your patience.
Hey, what?
Hey, what's up?
Me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry, one last thing. Look at me splitting at. My kids are nice and busy now. I'm getting through it all. One last thing, which, you know, it is what it is. So, back to the Secret Service and JFK real quick. There is the fact that historically, which, you know, you can argue whatever, but the Secret Service was founded as, what is the name of that group? Oh my God, in the West, back in the old West, there was a group, starts with like a P or an L. They were a group of just like private investigators and, you know, some would say mercenary people, but they are the ones that evolved into the Secret Service. God damn it, I can't remember the exact name right now, but they're like a group, like a family that They were just a kind of a gang back in the West, the Old West. And anyway, point being that I'll remember it and I'll type it in there. But yeah, they are the people that turned into the Peddington Group or something like that. They turned into the Secret Service. And so that would give credence to this idea. I want to be open-minded about all this, that the Secret Service could have done it, and even though like X and Twitter's blowing it up, and usually that's bullshit, but there is also the other side where.
Well, listen to this. The head of the Secret Service, Sean Curran. This was the guy who was behind Trump when Trump was doing fight. The guy with the right behind him. Yeah, he's going to be now the head of the Secret Service. That's interesting because all of these individuals who were a part of 713 in the Secret Service would have been or were part of the hoax. None of them were tricked.
Right, exactly. And so that could easily be because the Secret Service, like I was saying, is founded on this group of already fucking, I guess you would call them criminals, like mercenary criminals from the Old West. I wish I could remember the goddamn name, or somebody would.
Somebody will, just grok it. We'll look into it.
Some of the Pelton Group or the Pelton. I don't know. I'll find it.
Okay.
Anyway, I just want to throw that on it.
Okay, anyway. Appreciate the call. Apparently, I have a little bit of echo here, so I'm going to fix that really quick. Thanks for the call.
All right.
Okay, someone said there's echo on the call. I'll see if I can fix that really quick here. Thank you for that. The reason I didn't send notifications yesterday is I wanted to make sure everything was fixed. And yeah, let's look into the Secret Service because the Secret Service would have been a part of all of these psyops, ground zero. Like, there's no way Trump faked it and he tricked everybody in the stadium. I mean, you have to get real about this. If you're recognizing it's fake, you have to consider what's the extent of the fakery? How many people are involved? How extensive is it? How complicit is the media? Well, 100%. There's a reason why the left wing, who had every incentive to expose the hoax, did not. Think about that. If it was really a competition and they wanted to undermine the other guy or the other, whatever it is, you're talking about in politics, whatever the race is, there's always something on the other side that you could call out and undermine their credibility. And they never called out. Deprogram Truther got the live stream notification but could not find the video. Really? Did you go to infiniteplane.live? That should send you to it. But I'll see what I can do. I blame YouTube at this point. Pinkertons, says Plain Decoded. Pinkerton National Detective Agency. Okay. That's that piece of information he was looking for. Thinkerbell says the pink Chanel suit is in the National Archives, not viewable to the public until 2103 per the family. So there's a dress with blood on it. Is that what we're seeing here? Now, is there significance to it? I mean, to the dresses here. There's got to be. I mean, I don't want to... There's been stuff with dresses in the past, and everything with this... Whatever's running this place has layers of meaning. But yeah, that'd be really easy to determine that it was just Heinz 57 and not whatever blood type JFK had. By the way, I'm working on IPS Deep Dive number 2. So if you haven't seen the first one, it was on the Trump head wound. This one's going to be on the Batman, Joker, Gotham overlap with real world events. And as a backdrop, instead of a dry erase board, I'm using this, which I have been working on off and on for the last couple of months. And it's a mind map of all the significant symbols, names, and events that connect the last 3 years of PSYOPs, even further back actually, but specifically with Trump, with the Joker and Batman characters. I have to go through here and just finalize the detail, but just something to look forward to. Subscribe to my main channel because I will be working on this art live, as I'll be trying to get more information out of this gestalt once I have it all up there. Deprogram Truth says, whenever you are live, it's always on the top of my feed when I log on to YouTube, not today. We'll have to do something about that. I'm really leaning into perhaps reinstating the 24-hour live stream. For many of you, you knew I did this. We had this going for a long time, but from like 2018 to 2023, almost nonstop, we had a 24/7 stream going on. We still do on audio, but that was kind of a staple of this. We wanted to have that. And then I kind of branched into Discord, and it was no longer necessary. Like, why do we need a 24/7 chat room when we have Discord? Well, now that I'm not using Discord anymore, I'm going to have to bring back the 24/7 think tank, the chat room. The chats are all integrated now, and I think it would be useful. I get a lot of good information that way. So I'm probably going to try to reinstate that in the next couple of weeks. I have the content. We have a lot of content. I could just do all phone calls if I wanted to, just back to back, and keep the content new and interesting, and of course bring more people into the discussion. Thinkerbell says, no one who was around for the assassination will be around in 2103 to check for the hinds unless cryogenically frozen. Yeah, the idea that Trump was going to release anything, like when in 2016, he's like, I'm going to release the JFK files and the 9/11 files, and the truthers are like, okay, you got my vote. When has any politician ever told you anything? They don't. They pander all the time. Some politicians have gone so far as to pass bills banning chemtrails. I mean, they'll pander, but yeah, the infinite stream. And I did it strategically because YouTube was taking down all of my channels. And that's because we had a channel enemy who was flagging them. So what I started doing was, instead of uploading isolated videos, I would have this non-stop stream. I'd stop it once a week. So you have a 168-hour-long video, too big to process. YouTube could not process them, so they would just sit there in limbo forever, and they couldn't censor it. So that's how we kept this thing going for the longest time, but I think it might be a good idea to bring it back. Another reason why I like the live think tank as opposed to Discord is that live, I think it's more transparent. In these private servers, it can instantly become an echo chamber where somebody with an agenda can control the things. There's ways of influencing. I find the Discord servers to all be honeypots anyway. And if you want serious discourse and research, I think it has to be live. I think there has to be this transparency and open think tank as opposed to a closed echo chamber. Now, we still have Gilded, where we post all of our research, but most of our developments, most of our ideas, most of the intel is crowdsourced live, as we do here, as we have done for 7 years. It's been almost 7 years. So I want to thank all of you who have been supporters of this channel, and I am moving into the next phase where I am branching out from the subscription model, and I'm starting on a few side projects, small businesses, to finance this on the side so I can accelerate everything. I want to have the tabloid in a publishable format. I want to have it in distribution really next month. It should have been done 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I was hoping for November, but it doesn't matter in the long run because it is a long-term project. All right, thanks for the call. And, we have been getting a lot of first-time callers in the last few months, which is kind of nice. People have been listening for years are, calling in and kind of just giving us their take, which is nice to know because things have evolved. In the last month, we've had the final experiment, which has had some significant ramifications for the whole flat versus round thing, which is really a distraction from NASA criticism. Criticism of NASA is a separate conversation from the shape of the world, and they managed to put these things together in such a way that they conflated them in such a way that now it's like to criticize NASA is to be instantly discredited by these people who have this alternative cosmology. I'm like, that's such a straw man. Anyway, thanks for joining. This is One-Eyed Jack in the Shells. Just a bowl cut away. I'll send out notifications daily now, and archives will go out later on tonight. That's Nipsey Hussle going into that ambulance.
strong. I roll my cry stick on. Won't shut up and fake blood. I got Riley Parker on the run. Just a bow cuts away. Another angry white kid. Just a bow cuts away. Greta's going to be pissed. Hit by a squirrel. And Lord knows that I'm Vegas strong. Been hit by a squirrel. Gonna win the Golden Hockey Award. Shout out to Booty Pie. Another deep fake for your mind. No one cried, no one died. Just auto hoax the lies. Just auto hoax it. Just a book away.